There it is. Who would have thought of that? What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Mohawk Motors. My name is Jason. In today's video, we're gonna get this truck to run right. All right, let's see what we get for compression in number 4 with the throttle closed, cranking. Over 150 psi. That's almost 160, and that's cranking with the throttle blade closed. So that cylinder's got plenty of compression. That definitely is not the problem. Okay, so I've got the wire back on the coil, plug in the end of the wire. Like I said, I verified spark before. You saw that in the last video, but just to verify again, that's not like a dud plug or something. Here we go. Where'd you go, camera? You guys went for a ride. I did not expect it to try to run on only 3 cylinders. Oh, I guess I could unplug the other 3 and let's try this again. All right, let's try this again. It shouldn't start this time now. Man, is all that gas from that cylinder? That seems like a lot. Oh, no. No, I still have the compression gauge in it. Where did all that liquid fluid come from? Oh, whoa. Is that what it is? All right, let's confirm this spark real quick. We should get spark out of there this time. Try this again. All right, so I just rewatched that test there up close, and I only saw 1 spark. So I'm gonna try it again, but try to get the spark plug a better ground, just to make sure, because I don't think this stuff is grounded very well. It's all mounted in foam and stuff. So I'm gonna try it again with a better ground onto the electrode and see what that gets me. I think I can just hook a jumper wire from the electrode over to the negative post of the battery, and that should tell me. I want to see a strong, consistent spark out of that thing every stroke, every compression stroke. All right, I'm rigged up again with a good ground on the plug directly to the negative post of the auxiliary battery, which is grounded directly to the head. So that should be fine. So let's try. Let's see if that gives me a more consistent spark out of this plug. Here we go. All right, I'm gonna call that an intermittent spark. The nice thing is I have that hose, the compression tester hose in it still. I'm gonna try it again and see if the spark is synchronized with the compression coming out of the hose. I should get 1 spark every time I get a puff of compression. So I'll check that and report back. All right, so I did it again standing out here, and I can see like I have a consistent spark every time I have a compression from that cylinder. So I think it was just I'm not able to see it in this tiny little GoPro screen. So watch. Can you see the spark? I can spark. So it's got consistent spark. That's not the problem. Judging by how much stuff is blowing out of the that hose for the compression tester, and maybe it's flooded. Let me get that thing up here and we'll take a look at it. All right, so I've got my hose from the compression tester rigged up here. Well, let's see. Let's crank it over and see what that's doing. Here we go. Come on, fingers. Man, is it just me? That seems like a lot. All right, that seems like a ton of fuel coming out of that hole. I mean, it's dripping off the firewall from blowing out of the end of that hose. Can you see that? That's gotta be too much fuel. Yeah, that's gotta be too much fuel. I mean, that's gotta be, this thing's drowning. No wonder that cylinder's not firing. Watch this again. I mean, this is a ton of fuel coming out of this thing. I mean, look at this. It's running and dripping off. I think that's the problem. I think that cylinder's flooded. For whatever reason, that injector is just dumping fuel into it. So now the question is, it an injector problem or is it a wiring problem? Because that tells us we've got the three ingredients. We've got spark, we've got compression, it's on time. We've got, I think the problem here is way too much fuel, and that's what's coming, that liquid that's coming out of the exhaust that I talked about in the last video. So now I need to figure out, why is there too much fuel? So I guess my injector test in the last video was worthwhile, because I know that injector is opening and closing. At least it was when I tested. And it was working like it should. Like when I gave ground, it sprayed. When I turned ground off, it stopped. So it's opening and closing. It's doing what it's supposed to do as far as injecting fuel. So I don't think the problem is actually the injector itself. So I'm gonna check the wiring. I'm gonna check the ground. Is the ground? Yeah, maybe the ground wire is shorted and it's holding that injector open. Let me think about this a little bit, because if that were the case, then the Noid light would have just stayed on the entire time. It wouldn't have pulsed, because the injectors are controlled on the ground side. The PCM provides the ground when it wants the injector to actually inject the fuel, and that's how it opens and closes. So if I had a short to ground, then the Noid light would have just illuminated and stayed on as soon as I turned the key to on. Let me marinate on this a little bit and see if I can't come up with something. All right, experiment. I've unplugged the cylinder 4 injector. So now I'll crank it and see if I still get a ton of fuel coming out of that cylinder. If I still get a ton of fuel, then I'll know that injector must have stuck open when I installed it. If I don't get a ton of fuel, then I'll know it's an electrical issue that I need to identify. Watch this. Okay, there's my hose, my compression test hose. It's still in cylinder 4. Watch what happens when I crank it. The injector is still unplugged. That's still a lot of fuel vapor coming out of that hole, guys. A lot of fuel vapor, especially considering the injector is not plugged in. So there should be 0 fuel going into that cylinder. So, I suspect that injector got stuck open when I reinstalled it somehow, unfortunately. Or is the diaphragm in the fuel pressure regulator bad? That's the fuel pressure regulator. Connects to this little hose that comes right up here, which is located, I mean, right at the cylinder 4 intake runner. I wonder if I can get this thing off and if it's going to be full of fuel. Come on, old girl. Oh, liquid came out of there. That's not good. What happens if I turn the ignition on? Ha 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 ha! There definitely is not fuel supposed to be coming out of that port, team. There it is. Who would have thought of that? The fuel pressure regulator is leaking, which is allowing fuel to come through this little tube, which is the vacuum reference to the fuel pressure regulator, into the intake, which runs into, it's in the runner for cylinder number 4. It was a rich misfire. Let me dig around here and see if I have another fuel pressure regulator that I can swap out. And we'll see if that misfire doesn't go away. I bet that fixes it. All right, I did have a spare manifold with the fuel pressure regulator on it still. And now when I turn the ignition on, I can hear the pump priming. But there's no fuel coming out of that vacuum line to the fuel pressure regulator, which is how it should be. So let's get this put back together and get this son of into the dumpster. I guess not the dumpster, but the next one going to scrap. And then I think that should solve it. I'm gonna get this side all put back together, spark plug put back in, compression test hose taken out, and then we're gonna start it up, and I bet this thing's gonna run better than it's ever run. And I bet I'll have all 8 cylinders firing like they're supposed to be. All right, I've got it all put back together. Everything plugged back in, hooked back up. Definitely seems to be running smoother. %, running smoother, absolutely. Let's see what happens if we disconnect the coil. Oh, that definitely went down. Oh, yes! Yes! That's the first time I've had a misfire kick my but like that. And honestly, I don't know if I'd have figured it out if I hadn't accidentally left the compression tester hose on there like that. That led me to figuring out it was rich in that cylinder, that it was flooding that cylinder and gas fouling. So then I just needed to figure out why. And man, didn't even occur to me that the old pressure regulator, that port is right at the cylinder 4 intake runner. Whew. Oh, I'm so glad to have gotten that figured out. Now I can go back to the other stuff that I wanted to do in last week's video. All right, team, check it out. Thing of beauty.
No misfires?
No misfires. We're running on all 8. That's the first time I've seen that. I'm glad I figured it out. Oh, I feel so much better about this now. So on to some of the other stuff I'm trying to figure out with this thing. Got to get it 100%. Good morning, everybody. It's the next day. I'm honestly still feeling pretty pumped about getting that misfire sorted out. But I'm moving on to other things. Now, I had mentioned in a previous video that I didn't have a trailer hitch receiver for this truck. The one on it was all rusted out. I didn't think it was safe to use. Well, I got a not rusty trailer hitch receiver. It was actually on another truck I had. I didn't know they would cross over, but they do. So that hitch receiver came off of a GMT 900 truck, a 2009 2500 HD. It also had an 8-foot bed, bolted right up. All the holes lined up, everything matches the bumper. So I guess that's a good thing to know for you guys also. If you need a trailer hitch for your GMT 800 truck, it seems like they are the same on the GMT 900 platform. And just like on the 800s, it needs to be the same weight series. So 1500, 2500, 2500 HD, 3500, and it needs to be the same length bed. So 6.5-foot bed or 8-foot bed. But you know, as far as I can tell, that portion of the frame is the same. So the hitch bolts up the same. So hopefully that helps you out if you're looking for a hitch. You know, the 900s aren't quite as old, so the hitches aren't quite as rusty. Now, in order to pull a trailer safely though, we need to have a trailer brake controller. All of my trailers use electric brakes, and these trucks did not come with an electric trailer brake controller from the factory. You have to add it. So that's what I'm going to do next. So I've got a Voyager XP brake controller here. These things, I mean, these have got to be the most common trailer brake controller in the world. I see so many of them. And I want to get it mounted, and I want to put it somewhere that's going to be out of the way, but still able to reach it when I need to, in case I need to. But also, I don't want to drill holes in things if I don't have to. For those of you that have been here for a while, you know, I hate drilling holes in trucks, especially in like trim panels or dash pieces or visible places that if you change your mind to remove or move that thing later, now your aesthetically pleasing parts are messed up. So I have an idea here, and I'm gonna try mounting it with just some vice grips temporarily to see if I like it, if it'll work. And then if it will, then I'm gonna go ahead, get it wired up better. Because this came out of one of my part out trucks, and they just used butt connectors. I mean, they've got double butt connectors. Oh, excuse me. 3 butt connectors and this white wire. I guess the first time they cut it, it wasn't short enough, so they had to cut it again, and then it was too short or something. I don't know. So I'm gonna get this wiring sorted out and not looking, look, 2 in the red wire also. I'm gonna get this wiring sorted out so it's not so crummy. And I think, I wanna see if I can mount it right here. The thing is going to be if it's in the way of the gas pedal, so I'm going to hold it there with vice grips and see what I think. All right, I think I've got it where I want it. So sitting how I will be when I'm driving. Got the steering wheel adjusted to where I can see all my gauges, same way it'll be when I'm driving. I've got my trailer brake controller right down there where I'll be able to see it also. With a direct line of sight right through the steering wheel down to that, so I'll be able to see my LED indicator, make sure all systems are go when I'm driving. It's not going to interfere with the transfer case shifter, and I'll show you what I'm thinking I'm going to do to mount it in a way that it's not going to bother me. I am going to have to drill some holes, but it's not going to bother me to drill these holes. And I'm going to be able to use factory hardware to actually mount it, which is not necessary, but it just makes my heart happy. Like so many other things, I want everything I do to be as factory appearing as possible. So I think this will look very much factory. I'll show you what I'm going to do. All right, so if you can see here, yeah, you can see. There's my vice grips holding it temporarily. But down here under the knee panel, there's a little metal brace. It runs all the way across the length of the dash. This little guy right here. Now that's just wide enough that I can drill 2 holes into it for my mounting bracket. And then I can use some factory 7mm screws and the little clips that those screws go into from another truck to mount this thing right here. And then once I mount the bracket, I'll move the brake controller up into these higher mounting holes, so it'll be a nice tight fit. And then I'll get all my wiring routed up and away from the pedals, so it's not going to chafe or rub or have any issues. And then ultimately plug it in over here to the trailer brake controller port. I think it'll look really good. I think it'll look like GM put it there, which is obviously what I'm after. And it shouldn't be too difficult to do. And best, if I ever decide to get rid of it, or if I someday sell the truck and that person decides to get rid of it, all they have to do is take those 2 screws out and unplug it, and you'll never know it was there. These are the little 7mm screws I'm going to use. They're the same ones that they're all over the place on the dash. GM uses these. I mean, it's the most common fastener in a GM dash. And they go into these little thread insert guys. They just snap over whatever you're putting them on. In this case, they'll just slide right over the metal bracket here. And then the bolts will screw right into them. And I think before I do that, I'm going to try to bend this just a tiny bit more flat. I obviously don't have the instructions, but if I remember from my days working as a fleet mechanic, the manufacturer wants these things mounted as close to parallel with the ground as possible. Yeah, that was it. That's a nice positive click. And engagement. Now I crack it. Length that they got these wires. Alright, well, got my bracket here. I took the little knee panel off just to make it easier to access and get my wires tucked up out of the way. So, all that's left to do is mount my little brake controller right here and get my wires pulled up and around like so. I think I'm going to tuck it over this way, up here, over there. Go under this stuff, and then should have just enough to get it where it needs to go. So I'll put my couple screws in the brake controller to hold it in place, my wire over here to where it needs to be, and we should be good. I'll bring you back. All right, there we go. We got everything back together. My perspective, hopefully, I think you can see it there, but there's my brake controller right there. I can see it right through the hole in the steering wheel. I can easily grab it if I need to. I didn't have to drill any holes in anything that I didn't want to put them. Nothing aesthetic is damaged, and if I ever want to get rid of it, I just unplug it and take those two 7mm bolts out. That's about, I think that's about the most factory looking trailer brake controller install I've seen in one of these trucks. I'm really happy with that. I like it. I think I might move it to that same place on my other truck, on my crew cab. I have that one mounted up a little differently, but now that I've done this, I like it right there. So let's move on and see what else I need to figure out on this thing. Alright everybody, well, it's I think it's like 4 or 5 days later from where I left off. I can't remember. It's been busy, we've got a lot going on, so I kind of lost track of it, but I want to get this video out for all of you. So I took the truck on a 140-mile round trip the other day to deliver an engine. Ran flawlessly the entire time. Smooth, idle, lots of power, and most importantly, no misfires, no flashing check service engine soon light, none of that stuff. Just performed minty the whole time. So super happy to get that misfire diagnosed and corrected, and hopefully this helps some of you. I still have more to do on this truck, but that's going to be in another video soon. And then I think I'll have this thing exactly how I want it, to drive it and enjoy it. So thanks a lot for watching, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed also. Man, I hope if somebody's got a mysterious misfire that you just can't figure out, maybe this will help. And until the next video, everybody, take care.